Welcome back to Descenders, and welcome to Area 2, the Forest. I'm Kinetic, with me again is Blank Tester.
Hey kids, how's it going?
And Ramirez.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
So this is continuing straight on from Video 1. Again, I got through the Highlands, I completed the boss jump after dusting my face against the ground once, and it's sending me right into the forest. And that first track, that basic setup, is always going to be average on every variable. But yeah, and then after you get through that, then you'll get access to the map and be able to start picking and choosing your way to the end.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Which gives you a good gauge of like, okay, this is how curvy this area is on average. This is how steep this area is on average. So if it says more or less, then you're like, okay, well, there you go.
And I never actually thought of it that way. It does make sense.
The forest is really a step up from the Highlands. We talked about the Highlands being open and you're able to see what's around you, you're able to dodge something that's in front of you, where the forest off track and often on track, there's a ton of trees in your way.
Yeah.
And you have to be really careful if you're gonna go exploring.
This one I honestly think is the second hardest environment in the normal campaign in the game. Just because of how dense the entire layout of these places is, like, where you could just go off like any sort of hill and just die instantly.
Whoa. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, and also that some of the set pieces, even some of the normal ramps, also are tougher to work with. Like, they either have kind of an odd setup like that or are pretty thin, actually.
Yeah, there's also a weird thing about the forest, too, where they have the stunts meter like they do on every other one. But a lot of times the stuff that shows up in stunts in the forest really isn't stunts, per se. Like, they have, like, the little bridge that you cross over the rocks with, or sometimes there's just a log in the middle of the road. Like, it's kind of misleading in the forest, like this bridge right here.
Right. You know, I mentioned in the Highlands video that you were pretty easily able to gauge how the track would be based on the stats that it has in the map, whereas in the forest, yeah, sometimes with high stunts, it seems to almost be more about like, hey, you should find your own opportunities, sort of like, on lower stunt courses, I've generally gotten more actual ramps, more actual, set piece.
Yeah, because
sort
like
of things
stunts, by stunts they mean those things that are those little set pieces that are little constructed set pieces. Oh, was that a 0 in everything?
That was I think it was 1-1.
Oh, okay. But there are those little constructed set pieces that break up the track, and that's all it means when it says stunts. So this has high stunts. We'll probably see a ton of those constructed set pieces. Doesn't necessarily mean you can actually do a jump on them.
Yeah, they're not all ramps.
Yeah. So like, and there's also these banks now. You haven't had one where you haven't had an optional objective which was don't let go of the accelerator or don't use the brakes or whatever.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of those yet, which is kind of surprising because normally the forest loves giving you those.
I always find myself with those in this area.
I did see one fire tower jump though, which is honestly the scariest set piece that the forest has to offer, in my opinion.
Was that the big tower?
The big tower where you have to jump through the supports underneath it.
Again, with
speed modulation,
lives,
you know what to do there.
Right.
Wow. But see, like, you can kind of just explore here. And I mean, like, even if you lose track of where the track is, just kind of wander. You know that the end goal is going to be somewhere near the bottom of a hill. It's called Descenders.
Yeah.
So unless you're playing Ascenders.
Yeah, the April Fools for this game was Ascenders. And also what I'm doing across this playthrough is I'm not necessarily playing better, but I am implementing more kind of extra things you can do that aren't directly stated by the game along the way. Like, for example, I want to keep my rep going. If I wait too long before I do some tricks or slide around or such, that'll start decreasing again in multipliers. So I might start doing some small little wheelies just to keep that timer refreshed.
And slides.
Yeah, again, that is not something that is like, oh, I need to learn how to do this in the first 5 minutes to be able to survive. That's just extra stuff. But yeah.
Oh, yeah. See, like, stunt, you get some rep for it, but you don't have an opportunity for a jump there.
Yeah.
I did want to point out that the soundtrack is largely electronic music. The soundtrack is entirely licensed in such a way that you can stream the game or record footage and not get hit with a copyright strike, which is an extremely generous thing for the developers and the musicians to do. And I really appreciate that. And if you really like the soundtrack, if you like what you hear, a lot of the tracks you can listen to for free on YouTube, but you should buy the soundtrack on Steam or just independently. It's about $10.
Right.
It's a really good soundtrack. What is this?
What is going on there?
Right. So for this level, it actually generated this curve to curve in on itself.
What?
That is so weird.
That's the first and only time I've ever seen that.
That's
so
weird.
Wild. I'm glad you got that on camera.
I have never seen that before.
Yeah, the game's generation is usually really good. I will say that, like, one of the things that the game does that differentiates different environments is, oh my god!
Wow.
I know what I'm doing.
the hills and the steepness are modulated both by the random seed you get and also by the actual environment you're in. So, like, in the forest, you're gonna have a certain amount of steepness overall, and then it seems like, I think, are we allowed to talk about the secret areas later on?
Sure.
So, like, the volcano area later on, there's some of those hills that you're supposed to go up are super steep.
Oh god,
right?
Yeah.
And so, like, that's why it's not one of the main areas. It's one of the secret areas, because it's like, this is for advanced players pretty much only.
So should I explain the fire nodes since you're on one right now?
Oh, is this a fire node?
Yeah.
This isn't a fire node run, so pretty much what I'll just say is a fire node track always has maximum in all three classifiers, in steepness, in curves, and in stunts.
And you almost never have almost never have to go to a fire node. So, like, if you're unconfident in your ability to handle that, just don't do it. Do a different track.
Yeah.
Right. But I want to pick exciting tracks for this playthrough.
Yeah.
I could just pick some mellow stuff across the way, but I want to get in some,
hijinks,
odd situations. So
get into the nitty gritty, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, or at least again show kind of the best or craziest the game has to offer.
This is a pretty crazy fire node too.
There'll be an extra thing that's caused by me going into the fire node, but we'll see that in a bit. I do also want to point out that, again, I have not picked any yellow team crew members. The yellow team crew members can change, enhance the environment, like add steepness to all tracks, add stunts to all tracks. And I have not been doing that because I've wanted to show off kind of how the base tracks are for an area. But with those guys, like, if you pick a bunch of yellow team members, they could start messing with the generation in crazy ways.
Yeah, I think the biggest one on that is, like, the wider track and more banked curves, which can get some pretty crazy results if you later on in the career mode runs.
Oh yeah, and like adding more stunts onto something. For example, that Kinetic track I talked about, where if you pick Kinetic, it should be 0 in stunts. If you pick the guy that adds more stunts, you're suddenly getting stunts on those things where it's sending you downhill at
ridiculous speed,
really ridiculous speed. So it's like that can be crazy as well.
And I think you can actually, like, stack those too. So if you have like 10 in stunts, you actually will have like an 11 essentially.
Yeah, you'll basically, if you pick those guys, you'll see, like, where they modify the track, you'll see pluses or minuses on the actual stats. But I guess I just want to point out, we saw kind of at the end of that track there where I was just sliding down and, sliding off track and trying to avoid the trees. It's kind of the same feeling as when you're potentially gonna get in a car crash.
Yeah.
I fucking mean that. Like, you just kind of need to go, like, you just kind of need to stay calm and go, like, okay, where do I want to aim my guy?
Yeah.
Where's an opening? You know, slide your way over there, then jump to try and get out of the way of a tree.
This is a random modifier, real quick. Rough
Yeah.
weather. I don't know. Are there other rough weather modifiers? Like, there's fog. Is there like rain? Is there like I'm not really
The
sure.
modifier actually depends on what environment you're in, I believe.
Oh, okay.
It's pretty much all fog in most of them, but the effect of it looks different in every environment that you're in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine.
But there is only, like, if you get rough weather in the forest, it always looks the same.
Yeah.
But again, like, due to that rough weather, it really kind of obscured where the track was going to go, so I had to play that safer.
Be as safe as you can see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
it's-
a good way to go by on this.
Yeah.
Okay, so as much as I can, I'm going to pick these sponsor Kinetic tracks, because even though I'm a flippy boy, I love going fast on these, because these can get you so much rep, just due to the high speed and the sliding along, but also it's just, this is super fun.
Oh my god! It's like that
Basically-
scene from Hot Rod where the guy like crashes his motorcycle and rolls down the fucking hill.
Yeah, it's like, this is super fun picking, you know, a Kinetic track in forest or, you know, the next areas, and it being really steep, and yeah, it's basically like a roller coaster ride, kind of.
Yeah.
Like at the start of it, that's when you're, you know, finally right up to the top of the hill, you know, it's like, and you're up at the top, and then it drops, and
Yeah.
except you're in control.
Ish.
And I have to say, too, on some of these ones where you do the Kinetic ones and you get, like, the bonus goals for, like, no braking or keep holding the
yeah.
accelerator, that's, like, the biggest rush ever on these ones.
Yeah.
I
You gotta
do not-
you gotta hesitate, or you gotta resist the urge to like let go of your accelerator right at the beginning as like a small little like just pushing yourself along, because like if your goal is, or if your optional objective is never let go of the accelerator, you let go of that accelerator anytime and it's just gonna fail you on
Yep.
that. So
I'd say the never let go of the
there we go.
accelerator
Finish without braking.
is definitely the most dangerous, because along with that, you also cannot brake.
Yeah.
If you're holding the accelerator and you hit the brake button, you'll fail.
Fun
finish
thing-
without letting go of the accelerator.
That wasn't true when we started playing. I went back to our old streams. That's what I was doing for those tracks. I was just like holding the accelerator and fanning the brake to like modulate my speed. They don't allow you to do that anymore.
Huh.
Yeah. Which, I mean, makes sense. I was basically cheesing it.
Yeah. So, the thing about forest is that sunset in the forest actually makes things quite a bit harder. It seems to basically take the red and blue barriers that show you the sides of the track and kind of obscure them, sort of. Like, actually, when it gets to nighttime, I found that those become more clear again. Sunset in the forest can really mess with you on being able to see those barriers up ahead. And so I kind of just, once it hits sunset, I kind of just get out of here.
Yeah, the forest is really dangerous at night. Like, you can lose lots of lives if you're not careful at night.
Yeah.
By the way, I consider it a personal goal of mine. Every time you get to the end of those, like whenever I get to the end, I always try to crash my guy out of the finish line.
You just do a wheelie and then you just, like, have your character phase through the barriers. That's how you do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in multiplayer, sometimes when other people finish, their character continues at the speed they were at.
Yeah.
So you can watch other people's character. Like, for them, their character is stopped on their screen. But for you, see, I lost where the path was there. But for you,
Oh my God, yeah.
their character will just ride off. And if they're not stopped by something, it's just like,
Yeah. Bye.
bye.
By the way, I think part of the reason why the sunset is making these the sides of the track, well, I don't even see them anymore. The ribbons, hard to see. Decapitated.
He's not right
So,
after that one.
I think part of the reason that
Go
makes
ahead.
it difficult to see is because the sun shining through the trees casts crepuscular rays, God rays,
Yeah.
and that kind of adds striping to the whole scene. which these things on the sides kind of rely on for you to see them.
So, since I went through the fire node track, the game spawns a fire hoop on the boss jump.
Oh, that's
That
why those appear.
Will give you extra rep if you make it through it, but does make the boss jump even harder because now you have to have such a more precise, specific run-up. One more thing I want to point out about the boss jumps is that when you start the game, you'll find yourself going up the ramp and just going to the side of the landing ramp. In fact, I still do. I did in the Highlands, the first video. Like, that's, you get these speed wobbles when you're going fast, and they always set you up going fast for these. And I'd say that's a legitimate complaint. That's not based on, it's roguelike. Sometimes it'll generate well, sometimes it won't. No,
the ramp is always the same. It's just
the ramp is probably too thin overall. And too easily, just sends you off the side, and you're gonna have a 2-life bail if you haven't picked the right person.
Yeah.
So yeah, we made it through the forest. We're halfway through the career session. Next video, we'll go to Area 3, the canyon. See you there.